It's really a great honor to open this conference. And it's very impressive. We have to salute. We have to salute Boaz Ganor and all the people that are working very hard to do it. Shabtai Shavit, former head of the Mossad, and the one that actually started together with Boaz Ganor this institute, and many other people who are involved in this conference. And it's really an impressive conference, 140 speakers from over 20 countries. You have about 800 participants from over 40 countries. There are here many people who actually were sent from their unique counter-terrorism activities, ambassadors, and from Israel, we have all the people who are involved in the major issues of defense and counterterrorism, including the head of the Mossad, the head of the Shabak, the head of the intelligence, the general that is head of the IDF intelligence, and of course the Minister of Defense, and perhaps even the former head of staff, Gadi Eisenkot, and others. So it's a very interesting conference, and I believe it will inspire us all. Let me say that our university is really unique. We are not just a research institution. We are a university that its main loyalty is to its students, and I'm speaking in English after you. I was supposed to speak in Hebrew. Okay, so I switched to Hebrew.
And this university, our university, really is very special in the sense that it views itself not only as a research institute, but also as one that nurtures and cultivates the human capital of Israel. And as such, we train our students to take action, to have the tools and act liberally and freely in society while being entrepreneurs and realizing their potential, but we also find ourselves responsible to address Israel's social issues, to educate our students, to be responsible, to be the voice for those who cannot voice themselves, and to also continue to protect this country and its values. And as part of this, we address several issues, we engage in several areas that the ICT, the International Institute for Counter-Terrorism, is a part of it. There are entire groups and institutions that are dedicated to this. General Iran here has his IPS. We have the Abba Eban Institute for International Policy and Aaron's institute that centers on economics, and that is what I wanted to talk about. It is no surprise that I will be talking about our internal issues. We are at a time when there are dark clouds overhead. People are talking about the time for when the Iranian bomb will be created, and there are many questions around what is going to happen, particularly with Hezbollah and other organizations, if and when they will operate under the nuclear umbrella, the nuclear bomb, and what we have to do in order to prevent it. I don't want to go into these topics in too much detail, or address the matter of the Gaza Strip, which is of course well known to all of us. We all know where we are. I would like to focus primarily on our domestic issues. We are currently in a very difficult situation in the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, where we are actually fighting there in Jenin and Nablus because there is an immediate imminent danger, not only of a risk of a third intifada, but also for the occupation of the Palestinian Authority by force, by these forces, and that is there I see a great danger. And so what I would like to say is that it seems to be great importance, more than ever, for rapid dialogue with the Palestinian Authority in order to see what can be done before the matter of Gaza will repeat itself with Hamas eliminating a large group of Fatah personnel and taking over the area. But most of all, what I would like to remark upon are the huge issues that we have domestically in Israel. We cannot ignore what has happened around May 10th, 2021, about 1 year ago. The riots in the mixed cities, Jewish Arab cities, where all in all thousands of Israeli citizens participated, Palestinians or Israeli Arab citizens, Muslims, and what took place there really is of great concern because we cannot ignore it. We cannot shut our eyes to it. What they were guided by was not an economic, financial, or social problem, but instead what really set them ablaze was the Hamas calling upon them to take action. And there were elements there, of course, that were national and religious and played a significant role. This phenomenon, and we must remember that there were only several thousands who participated in these riots, and that does not attest to the entire Arab society, but it certainly does cause it certainly is a cause for concern. And if we add to that the matter of crime in the northern part of Israel against Israeli agriculture in order to take over their agricultural land, and if we add to that what is happening in the southern part of Israel, where people traveling are being hurt by Bedouins and others, we are currently facing severe domestic issues which are exacerbated by murders within the Israeli Arab society. And if anyone thinks that those who do not fear the law and shoot their brothers can certainly shoot ones who do not belong to their religious family and can at certain circumstances be in that group, and this group can perhaps even force others to take action against the state of Israel. But at the same time, we must also remember that we should all take it into proportion. These are only groups within Israeli Arab society, and not everyone is part of that group. Of no less concern is the domestic situation within Israel among Jewish society. We are currently in a difficult time where hatred is being fueled. We have the matter of the social media, the narrowcasting, whereas in the past we had the radio and television, we had the press, and they were all criticized publicly in terms of broadcasting. They had all sorts of limitations they had to adhere to. In the social media, there are no limitations, there are no restraints, and it is being exploited terribly with incitement, overtly, and fake news and lies and so on that really do incite the public, and we find severe violence against several protesters who demonstrate for political reasons. I had a discussion with the two people who were on the bridge in Rishon LeZion. One of them, on the bridge were 70-year-olds who were talking about their beliefs and their values and what they believed in. And next to them were two younger 60-year-olds and a father with his two sons came, and he wanted to show them what the democracy is all about. And at first they were just making hand gestures and swearing, and then they actually went on top of the bridge and actually attacked the people. And these two people were on the bridge. One of them was an officer in the IDF, and the other was in the paratroopers brigade, and he was then an officer somewhere else, and he happened to lose a leg, when he was on a landmine, and he had their hands behind their backs because they didn't want to react, and they wanted to stop these people from hurting the elderly people. And one of them actually really was hurt terribly, and they were beaten. And these phenomena really repeat themselves. They recur. It's not just a matter of protest, it's a matter of violence, political violence that is ever increasing. And one of the things that we recently saw was the letter by Ms. Porter, who sent 2 letters. And you can certainly say that she did things right. She didn't only threaten the Prime Minister Bennett that he will get shot, but she also explained that if he will not resign, she will also shoot and kill his son, Yoni. And how did she write it? His mean wife. She will also kill her as well. And in order for them to understand the message, she put a bullet in with her letter. And in order for that not to seem like a hoax, she wrote the letter without leaving her fingerprints so that she will not be easily traced. So these phenomena are really severe, but they also attest to a rift in our society, in the thinking of Israeli democracy. This perception that originates, by the way, in the ultra-Orthodox society. By the way, in ultra-Orthodox society too, we shall not generalize, but some of the ultra-Orthodox public was really caused great harm to the rule of law and called policemen Nazis, and some of them even said that they should fight them like God commanded us to fight the Amalekites. So this is a trend, a violent trend that is across Israeli society's spectrum as part of a political struggle. Now we must remember that there is a group that, according to their worldview, objects to the idea of having a lawful supervision of the Knesset. And they're saying, for religious reasons, that while they can agree to a situation where decisions are made by a majority vote in order to stop any kind of arguments, it cannot be accepted that an institution that does not have religious roots will supervise or criticize or have its criticism over the Knesset, and they're saying that this instead of the majority. So what we're saying is that this attack against the judicial branch, against the courts, against all of these elements that are law enforcers, the police and the judiciary. They're not just suggesting amendments, which is okay. They are attacking them, and that is really undermining us and destabilizing us. We are now in an election campaign which will determine the fate and nature of the state of Israel. And there is a great rift in Israeli society, which has significance and great implications, because you must remember that these phenomena in Hungary and in Turkey of Erdogan, and also in Poland, and the combination between extreme religion and nationalism, and the same worldview whereby the parliament only has sovereignty, and the parliament and its representatives must rule in all systems, and the state must be accountable for all the checks and balances. That's a liberal democracy, which is not a democracy at all. And the problem with this kind of democracy is that once it begins, it is very hard to change it, because they rule over all the systems and they can navigate things and steer things so that they remain in power. And therefore, what I would like to say and call upon this stage, to call upon all parties, all political parties in the state of Israel, we are now entering into an election campaign that is usually all about slander and being toxic. And I would like to call upon all political parties to understand that we have no other way except to live together and to act together. And therefore, the most important thing, and I don't want to go into detail, but in this next upcoming election campaign, we must not tear apart our social convention. We must all adhere to the Israeli Declaration of Independence. And we must all, if we want any sort of dialogue and if we want to change anything, we must go back to this point of departure, to this beginning, because our self-recognition has been determined by the Declaration of Independence. We cannot undo it. That is our self-determination. That is how Israel was self-determined, and it does not contain much, but it does contain some basic principles of a democratic state which cannot be undone. If we want to undo it, we have to do a much bigger campaign. We have to say exactly what we want to undo and against what. And therefore, if we enter this campaign, which I believe may cause an even greater rift in Israeli society, we must remember that we can rely on a shared point of departure, and that is the Declaration of Independence of the State of Israel. And those who tear apart this convention actually harms our ability to continue living together. And therefore, before this election campaign seriously begins, we must remember that there is no one else except us. And even though we have great disagreements and great bones of contention, no organization, no party should try and gain too much power. And we must remember that we have something to rely on. We have something that can form our basis. And we mustn't enter the day after the elections and find ourselves in a situation where we deepen the conflict among us instead of trying to reach understandings about the nature and role of the State of Israel.